What if the warnings in your life are not accidents? What if the discomfort you feel, the restlessness in your chest, the quiet voice urging you to wake up, is not random at all? And what if ignoring it costs you more than time, more than opportunities, more than comfort? What if it costs you the very direction of your life? There are moments when everything feels ordinary on the surface, yet something deeper is shifting. You sense it when you are alone. You feel it when distractions fade. A subtle awareness whispers that you were not meant to drift endlessly, reacting to whatever comes your way. You were meant to pay attention, but pay attention to what? Not to noise, not to panic, not to exaggerated promises or fear-driven messages. Pay attention to patterns, to repeated lessons, to doors that close despite your effort, and to doors that open when you least expect them. Pay attention to your reactions. Why does certain advice irritate you? Why do certain truths make you uncomfortable? Why do you avoid silence? Regret does not usually arrive with drama. It builds quietly. One ignored warning, one postponed responsibility, one excuse repeated until it becomes a habit. Over time, small neglect becomes a life misaligned. And the tragedy is not failure itself. The tragedy is realizing that you saw the signs and chose not to respond. Consider this. How many times have you felt that you should change something? Your discipline, your environment, your circle, your daily routine. Yet you told yourself, not now, later. When things are easier, when I feel more ready, when circumstances improve. But what if readiness is created by action, not by waiting? Many people live as if time is endless. They breathe without awareness of how precious each breath truly is. Yet when reflection finally comes, often in moments of loss or crisis, they see how many opportunities slipped away simply because they did not take them seriously. Being chosen does not mean being superior. It does not mean being favored in a mystical sense. It can simply mean this: you have been given awareness. You have been shown glimpses of what you could become. You have felt the pull toward growth. That awareness itself is a responsibility. When insight comes and you ignore it, something inside you weakens. The next time clarity appears, it feels softer. The urgency fades. Eventually, you stop noticing it altogether. And that is where regret is born, not from ignorance, but from repeated avoidance. Ask yourself honestly, what truth have you been avoiding? What habit do you defend, even though you know it harms your progress? What conversation do you keep postponing? What step forward have you delayed because comfort feels safer? Attention is power. Awareness is a gift. But only if you respond. Life does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it nudges, and sometimes it gives you one clear moment of realization and waits to see what you will do. The question is not whether signs exist. The question is whether you are willing to see them. Before looking away becomes a lifelong pattern. There comes a point in every person's life when ignoring reality becomes more exhausting than facing it. You feel the weight of unfinished goals. You sense the gap between who you are and who you could become. And deep down, you know that the discomfort isn't punishment. It's a signal. Why do we resist signals that are meant to guide us? Often, it's because change threatens identity. If you admit that you need to grow, you must also admit that you've been settling. If you acknowledge that you've been distracted, you must confront how much time has slipped through your hands. That realization can feel overwhelming. So instead, many people choose temporary comfort over lasting transformation. But comfort has a cost. Every day you repeat a pattern. It becomes more deeply wired into your character. Every excuse strengthens the habit of avoidance. And eventually, Avoidance shapes destiny, not because fate is cruel, but because consistent actions create consistent outcomes. Think about the times you felt a surge of clarity. Maybe it was after a failure. Maybe it was during a quiet night when everything slowed down. In that moment, you saw yourself clearly. You knew what needed to change. You felt urgency. You promised yourself it would be different this time. What happened next? Did you act immediately? Or did the feeling fade as routine returned? This is where many lives quietly divide. Not in dramatic events, but in small decisions made after moments of awareness. There is something powerful about paying attention when insight appears. It's almost like catching a rare window of opportunity. When clarity comes, it doesn't always stay. If you ignore it, you teach yourself that your own inner guidance is negotiable. Over time, you stop trusting yourself. You stop believing your own promises. And that erosion is dangerous. Because when a person loses trust in their own word, discipline weakens. Focus dissolves. Dreams become distant fantasies instead of actionable plans. Regret begins to form, not as a sudden storm, but as a slow accumulation of, "I should have." Imagine reaching a future version of yourself who looks back at this exact moment. What would that version say? Would they thank you for acting decisively? Or would they whisper, "You knew better"? Paying attention does not require perfection. It requires honesty. It requires humility to admit where you are misaligned. It requires courage to step into discomfort before circumstances force you to. Sometimes people wait for crisis to wake them up. A loss, a failure, a harsh consequence. But wisdom means responding before the damage becomes irreversible. Why wait for regret to teach a lesson that awareness is already offering? There is strength in recognizing patterns early. There is power in interrupting destructive cycles before they harden into identity, and there is dignity in choosing growth while you still have options. You are breathing right now. That means you still have time, but time is not guaranteed in unlimited supply. Each day presents subtle invitations to improve, to correct, to realign. The real question is not whether those invitations exist. The real question is whether you will finally accept them. There is a silent battle that takes place long before any visible result appears. It happens in your thoughts, in the private negotiations you make with yourself, in the moments when no one is watching and you decide whether to move forward or stay where you are. This is where regret is either born or prevented. Many people imagine regret as something dramatic, something tied to major life decisions. But in reality, regret often comes from the smallest compromises. The morning you chose distraction over discipline, an opportunity you dismissed because it felt inconvenient. The truth you recognized but refused to admit. And the most dangerous thought of all is this: I still have time. Yes, you may have time. But time without intention leads nowhere. Days blend into weeks, weeks into years. And one day you look back and wonder how everything moved so quickly while you remained almost the same. Why does this happen? Because growth demands discomfort. It demands that you confront parts of yourself that are easier to ignore. It asks you to release habits that feel familiar, even if they are harmful. It requires you to step into uncertainty without guaranteed results. But here is something rarely discussed: ignoring growth is also uncomfortable. It creates a low-level anxiety that never fully disappears. A quiet dissatisfaction that follows you, no matter how much you try to silence it with entertainment, noise, or temporary pleasure. Have you ever noticed that feeling? When you accomplish something small and feel relief, but not fulfillment. When you celebrate progress, yet still sense that you are capable of more. That tension is not meant to torment you. It is meant to direct you. Some people interpret this internal pressure as negativity. They try to eliminate it completely. But what if it is a signal of potential? What if it is a reminder that you are not meant to settle into mediocrity? Being attentive to your life means recognizing these signals without overreacting to them. It means observing your patterns honestly. Are you moving closer to your values or further away? Are your daily choices aligned with the person you claim you want to become? There is a difference between being busy and being purposeful. Many stay busy to avoid reflection. As long as there is constant activity, there is no need to ask difficult questions. But eventually, silence arrives. And in silence, truth becomes clear. If you continue looking away, that silence becomes heavier. It transforms into frustration, then into self-doubt, then into regret. But if you face it now, something remarkable happens. Clarity replaces confusion. Direction replaces drift. Confidence replaces hesitation. Not because life becomes easy, but because you stop fighting the truth you already sensed. Ask yourself, what area of your life feels slightly off? What conversation with yourself have you postponed? What responsibility have you minimized because acknowledging it would require change? You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be aware. And awareness, when acted upon, can alter the entire trajectory of a life. The moment you stop ignoring what you already know is the moment momentum begins. At some point, the choice becomes unavoidable. You either continue living on autopilot, repeating familiar cycles, or you consciously decide to interrupt the pattern. No one else can make that decision for you. Advice can guide you. Experience can warn you. But the turning point is always internal, and that turning point rarely feels dramatic. It feels quiet. It feels personal. It feels like a simple but powerful statement enough postponing growth, enough pretending not to notice the signs, enough negotiating with habits that keep you small. The truth is, attention changes everything. When you begin to observe your thoughts, your reactions, your routines, you regain control. Instead of being pulled by impulse, you start choosing with intention. Instead of drifting, you steer. Why does this matter so much? Because direction compounds. Small, intentional decisions repeated daily create a completely different future. A single shift in discipline can reshape your health. A single honest conversation can repair or redefine relationships. A single commitment to consistency can transform your financial, intellectual, or personal development. But it starts with acknowledging that your life is not random. Your outcomes are connected to your patterns. Your patterns are connected to your choices. And your choices are shaped by what you pay attention to. If you focus only on comfort, you will design a comfortable life that may lack depth. If you focus only on distraction, you will build a distracted mind that struggles with clarity. But if you focus on alignment, on responsibility, on integrity, you begin to create stability that regret cannot easily penetrate. Imagine yourself years from now, reflecting back on this season. Will you remember it as the time you ignored the quiet call to improve? Or will you remember it as the moment you decided to act before circumstances forced you to? Regret is heavy because it carries the awareness that you knew better, that you sensed the misalignment, that you felt the nudge, and still you turned away. But right now, you have something powerful: breath, presence, the ability to decide. Every breath is a reminder that the opportunity to adjust still exists. Not indefinitely, not endlessly, but presently. You do not need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You need to respond honestly to what you already recognize. Strengthen one discipline. Correct one harmful pattern. Initiate one difficult but necessary step. Momentum grows from movement, not from overthinking. There is dignity in responding early. There is wisdom in acting before regret becomes your teacher. And there is profound peace in knowing that you did not ignore the signals placed in your path. So pause. Reflect. Ask yourself what you already know but have been avoiding. Then choose differently. Because the cost of looking away is not immediate pain. It is the slow realization that you traded your potential for temporary ease. And that is a price no thoughtful person truly wants to pay. There is a final layer to this conversation that many people avoid because it feels uncomfortable: accountability. Not the kind imposed by others, but the kind that comes from within. The moment you stop blaming circumstances, other people, or timing, and begin examining your own participation in your outcomes. This is not about harsh self-criticism. It is about clarity. When something in your life feels misaligned, it is easy to point outward: the economy, the environment, the lack of support. And while external factors are real, they are rarely the entire story. The deeper question is this: within what I can control, am I truly giving my best effort? That question demands courage. Because if the answer is no, then the power shifts back to you, and power can feel heavy. It removes excuses. It removes the comfort of saying there was nothing I could do. Instead, it presents a different reality. There was something I could have done, and I chose not to. But here is the empowering side of that realization. If your past inaction contributed to your current dissatisfaction, then your present action can contribute to your future fulfillment. Responsibility is not a burden meant to crush you. It is leverage meant to lift you. Think about how often you minimize your own potential. You say, "This is just who I am." You label yourself as undisciplined, impatient, inconsistent, or unlucky. Over time, these labels become self-fulfilling. You act according to them because they feel familiar. What if you stopped reinforcing those identities? What if instead of saying, "I am bad at consistency," you said, "I am learning consistency"? Instead of saying, "I always quit," you said, "I am practicing finishing what I start." The language you use internally shapes the boundaries of your growth. Attention is not only about noticing external signs. It is about observing your internal dialogue. Are you encouraging yourself toward responsibility or excusing yourself toward stagnation? There is a quiet strength in choosing ownership. It shifts you from passive to active, from reactive to intentional, from waiting for change to initiating it. And here is something important. Growth does not eliminate fear. It simply teaches you to move despite it. You may still doubt yourself. You may still feel uncertain. But instead of allowing those feelings to paralyze you, you act in alignment with your deeper values. Ask yourself one final question. If nothing changes in your daily habits for the next 5 years, where will you be? Not where you hope to be. Not where you imagine being in your best moments. But realistically, based on your current patterns. If that vision unsettles you, that discomfort is valuable. It is information. It is motivation. It is a reminder that your future is quietly forming through today's choices. You do not need dramatic transformation to avoid regret. You need consistent alignment. You need honesty in moments when excuses feel easier. You need the willingness to face yourself without denial. Pay attention now, while the choice is still gentle. Act now, while the consequences are still manageable. Adjust now, while the path can still be redirected without severe cost. Because one day, reflection will come. The only question is whether it will be filled with quiet pride or heavy regret.